Hello, welcome to Level Change by Claudio Fonseca. I'm a real-world 777 pilot, and today we are going to talk about the electronic flight bag, the initial performance, and the dispatch data. Okay, so initially I want to talk to you about the EFB. EFB means electronic flight bag, and this is a hardware that is used by the pilots so they can access data for the flight. Okay, this data will include terminal charts, navigation charts, and route charts. It's going to include performance data, performance software, airplane documents, airplane manuals. So everything that you can get in a computer, we are going to get on this airplane aviation terminology as electronic flight bag. Okay, when the 777 was initially released, there was a specific electronic flight bag on the airplane itself, actually two, one each side. And nowadays, because of the reliability of iPads and tablets, most of the companies, they are changing this old piece of hardware to a standard tablet, iPad from Apple or any other tablet that they have available. Okay, so what PMDG did to this version of the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 was to remove the standard electronic flight bag from the airplane, the one that was initially or the one that was actually developed by Boeing and maintained by Boeing, to use a standard tablet. Okay, and here we can see, if we go here to the left side, we have one tablet on the left side here. Okay, if you remove the tablet from here, I will put here on the window, you will see that there is a space here. This is the space for the old hardware itself, for the old EFB. Okay, the old EFB used to do the same as this tablet. Okay, so there is no change to what we have inside the tablet itself. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about the tablet first. Usually when this procedure is designed by Boeing, first time that you are going to see Boeing talking about the electronic flight bag is on the pre-flight. Okay, so right after pilots checking the oxygen mask, Boeing says that you need to come to the EFB and initialize the flight. Okay, and then you start using as you wish. The problem is that you may need some information that is inside the EFB before this part. Okay, so many companies they adapt the procedure from Boeing, saying that at this time, after you do your initial preliminary pre-flight, you can start working on your airplane EFB. Okay, if you have a personal EFB, which means if you have this piece of hardware, if you have this tablet for yourself, and the company provides you all the documentation and everything for each and every pilot, you can even bring your EFB, your tablet, set up from home or from the hotel. Okay, so my current company actually fly with two types of 777. Some old airplanes, they still have the EFB. Okay, so it makes not much sense for us to set up everything before the flight, because we still have to use the airplane one. But when we are flying new airplanes, or when we are flying airplanes without the EFB, then we use our personal tablets, and then it makes sense for us to bring it from home or from the hotel, everything prepared. Okay, so at this stage you will have everything ready from home or from your hotel. If you do not have everything ready for home or from the hotel, or if you need to use the airplane one, that's the time that you are going to do it. Okay, as I always bring to you, there is a document that is going to show all the procedures for this flight. Okay, and the procedure itself is this one. Okay, so I bring here to you initially the EFB. Okay, so with the EFB, I tell you to use as necessary, but basically you have to start as setting up the route, setting up the en route charts, and setting up the terminal charts. That's the same thing for the first officer on the right side. He's going to do exactly the same thing, setting up the route and route charts and terminal charts. So that's the first step of our flight today, and we are going to do together here on the sim. So we are now back to the sim. You can go to your electronic flight bag, and then the first thing that you need is your route. Okay, so you can, in this case, as I'm using SimBrief, I'm going to request data from SimBrief. In real world, most probably if your company is using Jeppesen, you have an application from Jeppesen that can import the route from the company servers and so on, just exactly the same way I'm doing here. Okay, in this case, I'm importing this from SimBrief. The second step are the en route charts, and the en route charts, they are already here on the right side, but I would like you to pay attention that you can change this chart itself. So right now you have the standard Navigraph chart, and what I want to switch map, and what I usually take for this flight is the high IFR, the one that we have now. Okay, so now I can see IFR high. Here you have the option for the word IFR high, low, and VFR. Okay, so I prefer high IFR and the standard Navigraph map. Okay, so as you can see here, if you press again, it goes back to the PMDG map. It says here PMDG map, but what I prefer is the standard Navigraph map. So we have the maps here from Jeppesen, and then of course you are going to zoom in and out and change as much as you want. If you are using the weather provided here, you can take it any time for departure, arrival, alternate, or even choose the one that you want. Okay, but another thing that I do, especially because I do not use weather from here, as we have the communications page to do it, to request weather from the PMDG servers as a data link, usually at this part I take full screen, and I even go closer as much as I need for this flight. Okay, so if we come here, we can even change between day and night. I really prefer night, even though it's during the day, because I don't have a bright glow from the left side or from the right side in the other side. So you can even take as much as you want, even to show you the airport movie map. Okay, so here we are with our 777 varicolors on the position 511 in São Paulo, Guarulhos. Okay, so I set up the route, then I set up the en route charts, and the en route charts here on this airplane, you even have your airport movie map. So that's the way I started the flight. Of course, once I take off, I will reduce the zoom, and I will start seeing the entire route or part of the route that I'm interested on it. Okay, so we already complete the first two steps. The next step is to go to your standard charts and terminal charts in this case, and go to departure, and then you are going to select the charts that you want to see for this flight. Usually what you really need at least is the airport information. Okay, airport and airport information. So I want to pin this chart, and at least the parking or the ramp or the apron that you are in. In this case we are on apron 5, so I take this chart from apron 1 to apron 6, and I pin this chart as well. Okay, then my SID from here is AMVU for Alpha, so this is the SID. I also pin the SID chart, and if something goes wrong, I need to come back to São Paulo. In this case, it's going to be ILS runway 10 left, and ILS Oscar is fine for me. If I needed CAT 2, I would change to ILS CAT 2, but in this case, with the current weather conditions, ILS Oscar is fine for me to come back. Okay, of course you have more reference pages about the airport. You can check all of them, especially for approaches runway 10 left and 10 right. You are going to even see see a picture about the airport, a couple of information, and also on the airport you have the airport briefing. I do recommend you to read the airport briefing for every airport that you are going to fly, so you can comply with local traffic regulations. But I usually do not pin this chart, as this is for reference. I read it before the flight, I take notes of what is important, what is not important, I just forget about it. Okay, so once I set up all my departure charts, okay, I can just check here on pinned charts, and then I'm going to see that I have 2 for the airport. If I go to the SID, only the SID that I want, and on the approach, only the approach that I want. Okay, so it's like I sorted out only the charts that I'm going to need. If it's a short flight, let's say I'm going from São Paulo to Rio, let's say it's 35 minutes flight on this 777, in that case I will not only set my departure charts but also my arrival charts. Okay, even though today is a long flight to Frankfurt, I always consider going to the arrival charts to have an idea of my arrival and approach charts at least. Okay, so most probably we are going to be landing on runway 07 right, so I'm going to navigate all the way to 07 right here, and here we have ILS 07 right, which makes sense for me, and I'm going to pin this one. Why I'm going to pin this one? Because when I'm doing my CDU preparation, my FMC preparation, I can already see what are the transitions available, and then I can check the transitions available for this flight. If I really want, I can go and check that my arrival most probably is NPAX 5 Delta. Even though here it says 7 left, most probably is going to be 7 right by my experience on this route. So NPAX 5 Delta, this arrival makes sense, so I will check here and try to figure out where is NPAX. Let's see, here is NPAX 5 Alpha, so this is going to runways to 5 Alpha and 5 Bravo, 5 Charlie and 5 Delta. They do go to runway 07, so most probably this is the arrival that I need. In my case, today I would go and I will bet on NPAX 5 Charlie all the way to Delta Fox 644, and then from 644 to Delta Fox 654, which is the initial approach fix for runway 7 right, which we are going to see now already on the pinned charts on the approach on runway 7 right. Okay, so from 644 I can already check that we go to 654 as briefed on the chart here. Okay, so I already know which arrival to select on my FMC and which ILS and which transition I can select on the FMC. Okay, so this is why you do the EFB and you plan the EFB beforehand. If you have it at home or in the hotel, you do it at home in the hotel. If not, at this stage, when you are after doing the pre-flight, the preliminary pre-flight, you look for the charts and everything that you need to ambience yourself with the flight. Okay, so according to our procedure, we already set up route, en route charts and terminal charts. Okay, so the next step for this procedure is the initial performance data. And the initial performance data, I say here on the EFB because usually pilots, they use the EFB to calculate the maximum takeoff weight and also the landing dispatch weight. Okay, so these two things we are going to calculate now, and I'm also going to show you how SimBrief can bring this information to us. Okay, at some companies, all these calculations related to performance, they are done by an automatic dispatch system, but many companies still require the pilots to do it themselves. Okay, I think that's the best way, because the pilots will also get to know how the airplane behaves and what the kind of performance they can expect from that takeoff if they immerse themselves on the calculation. Okay, so after we do this calculation using the PMDG-FP, I'm going to show you how SimBrief is also bringing this data to us. Okay, so let's go back to the sim, and what I'm going to do now is I go to my performance tool, okay, and here I'm going to copy everything from OFP. So I import from OFP, so we have Guarulhos, most probably runway 10 left. I'm going to import also data from OFP for the weights, okay, and then the CG, as we need to import from the airplane, or we need some information from the airplane, you can type anything here, because on PMDG is not changing anything on these results. Okay, in real life you will have to choose between forward CG or a percentage of your CG. Okay, I would say that the lowest CG available is 7.5, so you can even input 7.5, and you can import weather also from the standard weather that you have. Okay, so basically what we have here: Guarulhos runway 10 left, that's the elevation. Runway heading is 096, there is no slope. The runway length is 3,700 meters. Runway so far is dry, and we are going to use optimum flap configuration, optimum rate configuration, air conditioning, anti-ice configuration is off, air conditioning is auto, which means on. CG, you can take 7.5 every time. That's the forward maximum forward CG for the 777. Even if you change something to 20 or 25 or 31 in this case, for PMDG is not going to change anything, so I'm not going to go into details about the CG. Just input a number. If you do not know a number, just import from the airplane, but make sure then to change your weight. And your weight is best to change it anyway, and you can come to your, if you don't know maximum takeoff weight from your airplane, you go to electronic flight bag, and then you can come here on your flight plan, and you can find here maximum takeoff weight, in this case 531, 535. Okay, so 531, 534 actually is the number in kilograms. 531, 534, just 1 kilogram difference due to rounded numbers here on SimBrief. Okay, so 351, 534. What I want to do, I want to come here and tell my airplane I want to depart with 351 tons, 534 kilos, which is my maximum takeoff weight. Okay, and then I'm going to input here calculate. Okay, when I input here calculate, it's giving me a message saying that the takeoff is not allowed. So the planned weight for this flight must be between 167,829, which is the empty weight, and 348,706, which is the maximum performance for today. Okay, so I did it on purpose. I calculate maximum takeoff weight, so if it says I can go, I'm fine. In this case, I just realized that even though my airplane is certified to carry 351 tons, today, with the actual conditions, I cannot do more than 348,706 kilograms. Okay, so I already know my limit for takeoff. Okay, you can also take air conditioning to off and calculate again. So I'm not sure. Yeah, today it worked quite fine. So as you can see, the minimum weight is still the same, is the empty weight, and the maximum weight now increased to 349,688. It still didn't reach 351, but I have an improved performance because I'm not using air conditioning in this case. So what this number is telling me, that with the current conditions, I can carry maximum of 350 349.5 tons. Okay, so now I'm going to check this number 349.6, and I'm going to go again to my flight plan, and I'm going to check what is my estimated takeoff weight. So my estimated is 301.9, so basically 302. Okay, 302 is far away from the value that we calculate here, 349, so I'm happy. I can consider to take off with the current conditions. Okay, when this calculation becomes a problem, when you figure out a number here that is lower, okay, than the number that you have on your flight plan, okay, then this is going to mean that you are not able to take off with this weight. Okay, and sometimes this can happen if you are generating your flight from SimBrief without any kind of restriction for your flight. Okay, so that's the first step. So we already noticed that we can take off with 302 tons in this case. Okay, but we also need to check for our landing weight. Okay, so maximum for the airplane is 251,290. Okay, and we are estimating to land with 213.9, basically 214. Okay, so how we calculate then the maximum performance for our landing? You can do this much easier in the landing dispatch. Okay, so landing dispatch, you import from OFP your destination. You are going to land on 7 right, or the one that you can predict. If you don't know, just take the one on your flight plan, which in this case was going to be 7 left anyway. We can even calculate with 7 left because it's shorter. Okay, and you can also play conservative. So 7 right, we have almost 4,000 meters, but let's see if we can land on 7 left anyway, 2,806 meters. It's dry, flaps 30, air conditioning on, anti-ice off, and with the current weather that we have there. Okay, and then you can calculate. You are going to see that the maximum landing weight is here 251,290. Okay, which matches the one that we have here as maximum landing weight 251,290, and we are planning with 240 tons, so it's good for this flight. Most of the times the takeoff configuration that you're going to use, 351, 534, if you have a long runway, is going to be enough. And also the landing dispatch, if you have a long runway, this weight is not going to be a problem for you to land. But it's always good for you to consider doing these calculations, because maybe one day you will be taking off or landing on a short runway in a small airport, and you need to know how to do this calculation. Another thing that we do in real life is, even for takeoff or for landing, we do not use the actual weather considerations. So in this case, for takeoff, what I will do, I will use 0, so wind 0 in this case will be 095/00. Temperature most probably is going to increase a little bit. Right now is 15, but it's going to increase, I will say, up to no more than 18 until we take off. And the QNH can even go down, so I'm going to select here 1027 just to be conservative. Okay, notice that if you press here you change to Fahrenheit, and if you press here you change from hectopascal to inches, and here to meters per second. Okay, I didn't know that it was possible to do this. I just realized today when I press HPA by mistake. Okay, so for the weather you also have the option to change the units if you need. Okay, so I was going to do a conservative calculation. I was going to calculate, and then my maximum is 346.8, basically well above the 302 that is planned by the dispatch today. Okay, same thing for the landing. Instead of this one, actually is 210 at 6. Means that we have tailwind on runway 07. I would keep like this. Temperature is going to be night when we arrive, so temperature 24 is fine, and maybe only the pressure is going to change a little bit. I will calculate with standard pressure 1013, and you're going to see that we still have 251290. Okay, so be conservative on the weather, as the current weather may change from the time that you are calculating until the time that you are taking off or landing. So to avoid last minute change, try to be a little bit conservative. Okay, so we just calculated maximum takeoff weight and landing weight for today. Okay, I don't want to calculate like this. I'm a sim pilot. I don't understand everything about performance. I figured out this is very complicated, or I'm simulating an environment where I have a company behind me, and this company has dispatchers that are going to calculate this for me. Okay, so when this happens, how we know that we get good data, or where we get the data from? Okay, so in this case, I'm going to show you our flight plan, and that's something that if you go on your SimBrief and you tick runway analysis, that's the information that you are going to have about your performance, and you are going to see that it matches all the calculations that we just did. Okay, so I'm going to runway analysis now, and for runway analysis for the flight that we have, the only difference is that this was based on 8th of July 2024, and I'm recording this on the 17th of July, 9 days later. That's why maybe the Vegas will be a little bit different, but I'm still using the same airport because it took me 9 days to reach this part of the tutorial for you. Okay, so then it says that this is takeoff and landing report for the flight Vargi 1986 departing from Guarulhos to Frankfurt, Maine on the 8th of July 24. Okay, so you have the information number 1. This is the sequence number at this date and this time, 0336 Zulu. Our airplane is the Papa Victor Juliet X-ray, is a 777-300ER, and the engines are G9115BL. Okay, so the basic empty weight is 168591, and the CG is here as nothing, because as I told you, it doesn't change for the sim environment. Okay, so here you even have a space to write the CG once you get the CG on your airplane. Let me just make sure you can see all of this. Yes, okay, so now that we start the runway analysis and we know where and what conditions we are talking about, let's talk about takeoff data. Okay, so here is telling us that they did this calculation based in Guarulhos, runway 10 left, the one that is on the flight plan. The temperature, so the planned temperature was 14 degrees. The planned wind was 192.04. This 192 M is because it's magnetic wind. The planned QNH was 3012. You can even use your conversion units to change here from inches to hectopascal. Okay, and then for this runway, okay, so the planned maximum takeoff weight for this runway, for the runway that we do have here as 10 left, is 312.0 tons, so basically 312 tons. Okay, so this is 312 tons. That's what you have for this runway with the current configuration that is going to give you now. What is this current configuration? The current configuration is flaps 5, assumed temperature of 27, so it says here again assumed temperature 27, this is the same number, and very important is just on the remarks here you are using takeoff 1, so 10% reduction and 27 degrees assumed temperature. With this you have speeds of V1 171, VR 176, V2 181. Okay, What is the planned takeoff weight? As I told you, was 302. This 302 tons here is coming from the beginning of your flight plan, where you have here plan 301964, so basically 302. Okay, so this is basically what you get, 302. So 302 is coming from here. Let's go back to our runway analysis. So the plan is 302, and they say 312 is the maximum that you can take off on takeoff 1, okay? But if you use full thrust, if you use only takeoff, then you can get a little bit more of performance, and that is 339.3, okay? So 339.3, that's very similar to what we calculate today as 346, okay? What is the big difference? Also, they calculate here with bleeds on, okay? So today was bleeds on, specific wind, specific temperature, and they come up with these numbers, okay? So you can have these numbers from here, okay? Now we have a couple of information for our runway. 10 left, 3,700 meters. The performance maximum takeoff weight in this case coming from here is 312 tons, and this is the ILS frequency for this runway. If I go to runway 10 left, sorry, 10 right, it is shorter, okay? So we have only 3,000 meters, but I can take off from there with 322 tons. Why? Because they are using different takeoff performance, okay? So this is for 10 left, they calculated with takeoff 1, and for 10 right, they calculated with their with takeoff. That's why SimBrief performance is a little bit confusing at this point, and they should be using all the same configuration. But basically for runway 10 right, they were not able to calculate with takeoff 1, so they had to use takeoff, and that give us, in this case, if you are changing your thrust, of course, to a higher thrust, a higher performance takeoff weight, okay? It's the same thing for runway 28 left with 3,000 meters, then it goes down to 320 tons. This is because of obstacles on the departure. And if you have runway 28 right instead of 10 left, the same 3,700 meters, but your performance is reduced to 311.5. So this 500 kilos one more time is due to performance on this departure segment for each and every single runway, okay? You also have the ILS frequencies for all the runways in case you need to come back. You already have access to these frequencies really easy, okay? So all the data that they brought here, okay, with specific temperature, wind, and QNH, they also have for dry runway, okay, at notice this planned takeoff weight. What is the planned takeoff weight? 302. So for you to take off with 302 on a dry runway, let's say that now the wind is calm, so this wind you don't take into consideration anymore, okay? So you are not taking into consideration 192 at 4, you are considering calm winds. So you will have this situation for runway 10 left, 312, 27 is the assumed temperature with takeoff 1, bleeds on, flaps 5, and these are the speeds, and what is the limit, which is basically the airport itself, okay? So let's say that runway change, and now we have 28 right. Okay, what is our performance for 28 right? So 28 right, if we have calm wind or headwind, which is better, on the planned takeoff weight of 302, okay, we were going to use takeoff 1, 27 degrees, flaps 5, and these speeds here. Okay, let's say instead of runway 10 left, instead of runway change, we have runway blocked, and we are still using runways 10, but in this case, instead of using 10 left, we go to 10 right, okay? So in this case, we need to change our takeoff configuration from takeoff 1 to takeoff. We can still keep bleeds on. At this time, temperature 32, but we have also to change the flaps to 15, and these are the new speeds for the flaps 15 and this configuration. Okay, so here you have all the information that you need for dry runway, planned takeoff weight, which is 302, one more time, and no wind or headwind. You can use this one. What happens is, if we are still on a dry runway but our weight is higher, okay, so we have the planned takeoff weight plus 8 tons, which in this case would be something like 320 tons. Okay, so what is 320? Is 312, sorry, 302 plus 8, and actually this is 310, my mistake. Okay, so 310. So let's say that up to 310, okay, I can still calculate and have the information for calm winds. Okay, I can take off from runway 10 left. Now temperature assumed is 28. What was before 27 now is 28. Okay, but why now it's a higher assumed temperature? Okay, and the same takeoff configuration, because now if I want to take off with 310, I cannot use flaps 5 anymore, and I need to go at least with flaps 15. Okay, and then with flaps 15, these are the speeds. Okay, so have in mind all of this. Okay, you need to check which is the standard one, what they calculate. Okay, and then if you have a difference, you can still use the tables below here to give you an answer if you can take off or not. Okay, now we have the same information for runway wet. One more time, 302 tons calm wind, or runway wet 310, which is planned takeoff weight plus 8 tons, and also wind calm, and you have the information here. Notice that for the 8 ton plus 8 tons, if you have a runway wet, at some point you even need flaps 20 to depart, while on a dry runway flap 15 would be enough. Okay, so you have all the options here, and that's how you can see your takeoff performance by SimBrief. Okay, so what we did on our EFB before, okay, we calculate this value here of 339. Okay, so we even reach with the actual conditions today 349, even with use bleeds off. Okay, so what we did before was to figure out what was this number, and then our takeoff can never go above this number here. Okay, so in this case today is 302, well below 339. Okay, so this is for takeoff. Do you have the information for landing? Yes, and this is the landing data by SimBrief. Same thing, they are considering Frankfurt. The planned runway is 7 left, planned temperature there is 9, the wind 197 magnetic degrees at 5, and inches 3003. They are using flaps 30 for this calculation, and the planned landing weight is 213.9. Okay, 213, almost 214 tons. Okay, remember the last 2 zeros, they will never show here. Okay, another remark, they already calculate with runway wet because they were expecting runway wet at the time of arrival. Okay, you also have the same information for the runways. You will see each runway, the length for each runway, and then the maximum landing weight for this and each runway, which today for all of them is 251.3, 251.3, which is basically maximum landing weight. Okay, so in Frankfurt, in a big airport like Frankfurt, we can land in any runway. One more time, we are planning to land with 214 basically. Okay, 213.9, and the maximum is 251290, which is 251.3, which is the information that you are getting here on your landing data. Okay, so where this information is coming from, I'm going to skip this part and I'm going to show you this part really soon. Okay, but basically what they are doing is they are calculating the landing distance with flaps 30 and maximum manual braking. So you have two types of landing here: the actual, which means they use the data to calculate, and this is the values that they got for dry runway and wet runway. And when they applied a margin, they call this margin as the factor distance, and then you have the factor distance for the dry runway and the wet runway. So basically, if you are landing with 214, which is just between 212 and 216, your speed will be around 138, and your landing distance on a dry runway will be just in the middle here, will be 929. Okay, 929, because for 212 is 924, for 216 is 934, so in between 214 is 929. Okay, in case the runway is wet, these are the values for runway wet. And what we have to consider as a factor runway to have a safety margin is basically 1,300 meters for a dry runway and 1,700 meters for a wet runway. Okay, they also tell us here that for each knot of headwind, you can decrease this number by 5 meters on a dry runway and by 8 meters on a wet runway. Okay, so your actual distance will be minus this number times the amount of headwind that you have for the dry and for the wet runway. And you also have these correction numbers for the dry runway factor distance: minus 6 meters for each knot and minus 9 meters for each knot on a wet runway. Okay, if instead of headwind now you have tailwind, for each knot of tailwind you have to increase 17 meters on the dry actual distance, 23 meters on the wet actual distance, 26 meters on the dry factor distance, and 33 meters on the wet factor distance. Okay, so here you have all the information that you need based on your weight and the actual distance that you are going to use on the runway, or the factor distance, which is the actual plus a safety margin for this weight. Okay, so for these calculations, what else we have here are your limits for go around. Okay, if you are coming into approach with flaps 30 with air conditioning on, and they say that there is no icing planned today, so you have here the information on your maximum landing weight in case you need to go around. And you are going to see that for all runways it is the same, because this is actually based on the obstacles that you have on this runway and the weather considerations, which is going to be the same for each and every single runway. So I'm going to use the runway that we have on the OFB to show you. So if you are landing on runway 07 left, you have 2,800 meters of runway available, and if you are approaching with 9 degrees, your maximum landing for flaps 30, in case you need to go around, your maximum weight is 251.3, which is basically your maximum landing weight. Okay, so this is the actual number for dry runway, and for wet runway it is the same. It doesn't change because we are talking about performance in the air. So if it's dry or wet, it doesn't really change. Okay, and then as you are already in the maximum, okay, all the corrections that you have in this case for a 10 knots headwind is 0 or zero hundreds of kilos. Okay, so you do not increase or decrease your weight based on the headwind for your go around, and not for dry, and also not for wet runway. Okay, it's the same in case of tailwind. For each 10 knots of tailwind, you can or you have to increase your weight by 0 for a dry runway, and you have to increase your weight by 0 for a wet runway. Okay, so it doesn't change much. As you can see, landing is not a big problem in a big airport like Frankfurt. Okay, the only difference is that when you are calculating the tailwind and the headwind changes on your performance, it gives us the amount that we need to add or increase every 10 knots. Okay, but when we talk about the distance itself, it gives us this distance per knot. Okay, so this is not by 10 knots, this is each and every knot, and for the go around, it's every 10 knots. But as you can see, it's done like this because it's not a big issue for you to go around at maximum landing weight with the 777. Of course, if you had to come back to Guarulhos and do an overweight landing in Guarulhos after takeoff, then those numbers here, they would be very different, and you will have to even use a specific application to calculate this non-normal situation. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that basically what SimBrief is giving us as landing data here is the maximum landing weight for each runway, and we figured out that is 251.3, the same number that we have calculated in our EFB. Okay, so here we finish this part about the maximum takeoff weight and landing dispatch weight. Okay, so I showed you how to do on the application itself for takeoff, on the application for the landing dispatch. If you don't want to do it or you don't know how to do it, you can go to your SimBrief, and there you will have the information about it. Okay, of course the numbers will be slightly different from what you get here on PMDG, from what you get on SimBrief and the real life, but they are all very similar, and you can use all of them for your standard flight sim session. Okay, the last step about the procedure today is the dispatch data that you have to review. Okay, now that you already know your maximum takeoff weight, okay, so you already know your maximum takeoff weight from your EFB or from SimBrief, and you also know your maximum or your landing dispatch weight, your maximum landing weight for the flight today, you can review the performance data and make sure that your flight is within the parameters set for these numbers. Okay, and then once you know you can take off and you can land with what was planned, you can review your fuel requirements and make sure you are going to ask the engineers, the refiller, or the ground team that is responsible to refuel the airplane for the correct amount of fuel. Okay, so this is what you need now. Okay, so basically what we did, just to finish this video, you open your EFB, you set up your route, your charts, en route charts, terminal charts, so now you know the route of your flight. Okay, then you calculate maximum takeoff and maximum landing weight, okay? And then you check these values towards your flight plan. If they are all match, or if you have more performance than the values on the OFP, you are ready to go. You can start planning your required fuel, okay? And about your required fuel, you are going to see or with all the informations that you have from SimBrief. I'm even going to change this one more time. So you are going to come to something like this, your operational flight plan, okay? So you are going to check that basically this is a training flight, or we have some weather along the route, or we have weather in our destination, and so on. So instead of using 98.5 tons of fuel, you can even adjust this by 1,500, and then your ramp fuel will be 100,000. Okay, so you are going to do like this. So 00. So you adjusted your fuel by 1.5 tons. So basically you are taking off, or you are asking the refiller to do 100 tons. Then there is a space here for you to write your restricted takeoff weight that we calculate today with 349.600, and your landing weight with 251.300, okay? So this is the dispatch papers that you have to comply with, that you have to follow, okay? So basically what we did is we calculate these two values one more time. Oops. We calculated our maximum takeoff weight, and we calculate our maximum landing weight. They are well above what is planned for this flight today. And because it's a training flight that I'm going to do with you, I adjust my ramp fuel by 1,500, and then the ramp fuel that I really need, the adjusted ramp fuel, is 100,000 kilograms of fuel, okay? So we are going to depart with 100,000, and this is how you fill the information on your flight plan. You can even say that 1,500 kilograms of fuel means basically 15 minutes, and now instead of 12 hours and 43, you have 12 hours and 58 minutes of fuel. So basically I adjust the ramp fuel by 1,500, giving me 1,100, and I also adjust my time. Instead of 12 hours and 43 minutes, with the 15 minutes that I'm taking extra, I'm going to have 12 hours and 58 minutes of endurance for this flight, okay? You can also correct stage by stage. Let's say that I want to change my alternate to something else, or I need additional fuel. In this case, you can even put the additional fuel here as well. Some companies, they require the pilots to do it. So basically you are telling the company, okay, so I'm getting extra 1.5 tons of fuel, so I'm adjusting everything by 1.5, which is going to give me 100,000 kilograms of fuel today, okay? This is a very strange number, I would say a very characteristic number. This is not a percentage, this is not 100%, this is 100 tons of fuel, okay? So 98.5 was in the beginning, plus 1.5 is going to give us 100, okay? So this is what you have, okay? So maximum takeoff weight again from the EFB, or if you do not have EFB, you don't know how to calculate from your runway analysis, that in this case you are going to write 339, and landing weight also you have here, sorry, maximum is here. 251 to runway 7 left, which is planned 251.3. That's exactly what we brought to the first page. So this is the last part of our procedure that I called the performance data, fuel requirements, and all the dispatch data related to this flight. Okay, guys, I know the video was very long, okay, but I wanted to take everything into consideration, especially because this is a big airplane. You need to know your takeoff limitations, you need to know your landing limitations, also because SimBrief is just using this takeoff and landing data analysis, so you can get from them, but I show you how to get from the EFB itself, and then I even show you how to resume all the dispatch data and even write in your flight plan what you get from all these calculations. I hope you like this video. If you like, please give us the thumbs up, share this video with your friends, and I'm going to see you on the next video, where I'm going to talk about the FMC initial data, the CDU initial data. We are going to start filling our FMC. Thank you so much, guys. See you next time. Bye bye.